YouTube's Kachidoki here with a review of the Kamen Rider Gaim Arms Change Series 11, Kamen Rider Gaim Kachidoki Arms. So, this is our 11th entry in the series, which is a lot. They're definitely pumping out. We're going to finish this line with at least 13 retail entries, which is pretty incredible. So, that's really cool. Box is just a very much thicker arms change box with a bunch of cool Kachidoki pictures on it. Here is the base body for Kachidoki Arms, and it is basically the same Gaim mold that we have come to expect. However, with a couple different changes, you have a different arm mold here with the Kachidoki armor on it. Obviously a new head with the new crown, as well as a Sengoku driver with the Kachidoki lock seat attached. That is really the only main difference. Just for comparison's sake, here is Gaim, Jinba Gaim, and Kachidoki Gaim next to each other. Like I said, all the same body, just with very minuscule differences. Kachidoki being the biggest. He definitely looks a lot taller with that new head sculpt. So included with him is the DJ gun in the sword mode, along with a Musou Saber. It's not painted like the other Musou Sabers, but other than that, it is virtually the same thing. It even includes a little slot for the holster, even though he doesn't have a holster. But this slides right in there, and there you go. There is the Taiken Mode for the DJ gun, and then here is the DJ gun in the gun mode. Not very detailed, but still pretty cool, so we'll take a look at that after we go through the transformation. And here is the Kachidoki Arms in its little fruit mode. It still retains its ball shape very well, despite being a very bulky armor. And the flags and the helmet are obviously out of the fruit mode when in the package. So you do have to put those in place. And I don't normally do this, but I will do the transformation back into the fruit because it's actually kind of difficult on your first try. Once you get the hang of it, it's really super easy. But that first time doing it can be a little bit of a pain. So help out, we'll go ahead and do that. But to go ahead and start the transformation, it's kind of one of those things where you really have to dismantle a lot of the fruit before you put it on. Sort of like mango and I assume lemon. So pop that off there, and this entire section will fold right around. The helmet piece doesn't really stay in place all that well. So you might want to either set it aside or just plop it back in. This will fold up right here. The flags will swing around to right about there. We will reposition them as we see fit. This will twirl around and then swing down. So once again, it is a twirl around this joint right there and then slide down. Those are obviously going to be the shoulder pieces. These slide down like this, split apart, split from there. And there we have the armor. So without further ado there, slide his face right in there. Have him collapse under the sheer pressure of this amazing armor. Make sure that his head is in. Swing that down. This has a little cutout to secure the bottom part of the armor in. Make sure his feet are good to go. And there we have it. Swing that down so it's flush against the back. And there's actually, with that little belt lump right there, it actually kind of, not really tabs in, but it kind of gives you a nice little secure place to keep that. So that's really nice. And here we have Kachidoki Arms. Words cannot describe how much I love this figure. Kachidoki Arms is currently my favorite arms, and unless Kiwami looks really freaking cool, Kachidoki is probably going to be my favorite. He does end up very, very bulky, while the suit in the show has this very much slimmed down and fleshed out, obviously, because of the way the arms change line works. That isn't going to happen. So you do have this big, bulky back thing there, which is a little bit off-putting, but given most of your poses are going to be from the front, it's not that really big of a deal. Thanks to how many joints these arm pads are on, they do not hinder the articulation whatsoever. The bits right there kind of do, but you don't really have a real reason to do a full hands in the air pose with this guy, so it's not a huge deal. And because of how this works, you do have a little bit of a hindrance in the upward poseability of the knees and the hips. And I think I popped off the armor. No, just the back part? Okay. Coolio. So you do get a little bit of issues down there. But thankfully this armor does slide up. So if you need it to, you can sort of reposition it as you see fit. So that's not horrible, but it is something to keep in mind, that the leg poseability leaves a little bit to be desired. But when you have a armor that's so bulky and protective, that's something to be expected. My biggest disappointment with the figure is actually the fact that he can't really hold his weapons all that well. I've always had an issue with these arms change hands. They're about the same hands that I think they've been using since the WFCs, and they're the two jointed little clawy hands you got going on there. And those are fine because you can get a little bit of posing out of them. That can be interesting sometimes. They just don't grip weapons well, particularly when they're weirdly shaped like the DJ gun here. It has to mold around this curve, and it just doesn't particularly hold it all that well. You have to like get the sweet spot perfectly in order for him to really hold it. And it might just be the fact that I'm awful at this, but I can't get it for the life of me. So we'll leave that alone. The Taiken Mode is a little bit easier to manage. It is a stick, so it's a lot easier to have the figure grip the stick than it is the curvy DJ gun holster. The Taiken Mode itself is a little bit heavy, so if you have a little bit of a loose joint going, it might want to pull that arm down. But mine seems to be doing okay. So there's that. So basically for posing options, I would suggest the Taiken Mode, just because it is easier to hold. But other than that, you can take the flags off. And he doesn't really do this all too often. In the most recent episode, he used them as basically a defense mechanism. So you can pop those off, and he can hold each of the two flags, and the flags are just made out of a rubbery plastic. So kind of be careful when you're storing those. So you can hold the two flags, and you can pretend they're swords or whatnot. And those, when they're out of the box, just have little pegs, or little holes rather, and they just pop right into the little pegs on the back here. If you don't like the way that they look sticking up straight like that, which I do agree it can be kind of off-putting in some fashion, just swing them down and they fit flush right against the back here. So that is an option. Alternatively, you can just take them off, since in the latest episode he also used them as a defense mechanism and then threw them, so he didn't have them anymore. So you can do either or. I actually kind of like the way it looks with the flags folded down like that. But for official sake, we'll just keep them on and up. He is a little bit top heavy. If those ankle joints are a little bit loose on your figure, there is a chance that he can fall forward. Falling backwards right now was my fault completely. So you have to kind of get the balance going, but he's actually fairly sturdy, and I just really, really love this armor. It looks fantastic. Articulation is a little bit to be desired, but But overall, I just really, really like it. Now, to transform him back, like I said, it is a little bit tricky. Basically, what we're going to do is, the trickiest part here lies in the shoulders. Not the shoulders, the helmet and the shoulders, this area right here. You basically have to maneuver this while it's still folded back. And this little tab right here on the helmet will fold right past that cutout in the fold here. And that will allow it to fold forward. So it's a little bit of a tricky thing. That is what was catching me the most the first time that I was transforming this. So you have to keep that in mind and be a little bit mindful of it. Like I said, it doesn't peg in all that securely, but once you get that latch over it, it will kind of hold it there. So you don't particularly have to worry about it sliding around anywhere. These are going to have to return to their normal position. So that involves swinging that around. I had it right the first time. Swinging that around. These will plug into the tabs right there, and then I manhand it. Those will tab in right there. These have a little hole to go in right there. So that will securely lock in this entire front section up here. The flags will just kind of chill out there. Put this part back where it goes. I don't know if it's just my figure or not, but this fold area right here really does like to pop off the joint quite a bit. So you might want to be careful about it just in case. These shoulder pads have two little tabs on them, and they will tab right into the slots on the skirt piece right here. Takes a little bit of maneuvering to line up, but there you go. You're back in the fruit mode, and it has varying degrees of success in holding together. It's a lot of pegs and a lot of tabs, and the tabs aren't as strong as I'd like. But you're not really going to display it like this anyway, so it's not really that big of a deal. But the fact that they can actually turn this armor into a fairly compact ball is very impressive to me, so props to them on that. They did a very good job on that. So there you go. Like I said, it is tricky to do the first time if you don't know what you're doing, but once you get the hang of it, it really isn't all that difficult. You're going to find the armor popping off to be a bigger problem than actually figuring out what you're doing. So overall, this is another fantastic entry into the arms change line, and probably my favorite to date. The armor just looks so cool, and while the toy is quite a bit more bulky than the actual show model, it just looks very cool, and the bulk actually adds a little bit of neat to it. I think that's a weird way to phrase it, but like I said, my only flaw with the figure is the fact that it can't really hold the DJ gun all that well, and I think that's a shame given how awesome the weapon is. Thankfully, it does include the necessary components of the Taiken Mode, and he can hold that just fine, so he can still have a little bit of elements of cool to him. But it's just really great. It gives you another base figure to work off of, and while a hyped-up Gaim isn't really a thing to write home about, it still gives you another base body, and that's really cool. The biggest piece of fun in this figure is the fact that the Kachidoki Arms is capable of attaching to any of the previous base bodies. So you can have Zangetsu Kachidoki Arms, or pretend that Michi stole it, like the little thing he is. And have Ryugen Kachidoki Arms. It's really, really cool to throw this armor on other figures and see what happens. I will link in the description below to the Bandai site where you can mess around with the arms change and see what those forms look like. So very cool. Definitely recommend it. If you're only getting a couple arms change figures, this is definitely one that should be on your list regardless of who else you pick up. It's just an incredible figure, and I can't wait to see if Kiwami can actually top the awesome that is Kachidoki. Very much an incredible release, and I am very glad to finally pick this up, and I just really, really like it. Thanks for watching, take care, and have a great one. Bye.